Lesson 05, Multiplying and Dividing Rational Numbers. Please make sure that you show all work because at this point we're still not using a calculator. This is the last lesson before the no calculator quiz. So we'll talk about multiplying and dividing, basically decimals and fractions. So first, decimals. When you are multiplying decimals, you do not line up the decimal like you do with addition and subtraction. You just put the numbers there. You actually kind of ignore that there's even a decimal in the numbers. You multiply them as if they were whole numbers. You count the number of decimal places in the problem, and then you place the decimal that many places from the right in the product. Also be aware of signs as far as positives and negatives because those rules apply. When you're multiplying the two numbers, if the signs are the same, the answer is positive, and if the signs are different, the answer is negative. So we're going to start with negative 5.4 times 0.05. So as I'm doing this problem, I have a negative times a positive, so I know that my final answer will be negative. I would go ahead and just write the problem vertically then, like this, 5.4 and 0.05. Remember, you don't line up the decimal, and we are multiplying. So 5 times 4, 20. And 5 times 5 is 25 plus 2 is 27. Because the other two numbers are 0 in that second number, I'm done multiplying. I count the decimal places, and I count 1, 2, 3. So that means I start over here at the end on the far right and go 1, 2, 3. And my answer would be negative 0.27. Or you could say negative 0.27. And either one would be correct. Questions about that? Make sure you watch your signs, multiply the numbers as regularly, and count the decimal places in the problem. That's how many decimal places in the product. All right, division. Division, we are going to use our division box. So it's probably been a long time since you've done this. So we are dividing. It's a negative divided by a negative. So I would really kind of just get that out of the way right off the bat and realize, okay, my answer is going to be positive at the end so that you can kind of disregard them. So I'm going to put 6.84 inside and 2.4 outside. So when you're dividing, the divisor cannot have any decimals. So the 2.4 cannot have any decimals. So you got to move that decimal as far right as you can. And in this case, that is just one place. So you move that decimal the same number of places in the dividend. And you add zeros if necessary. Well, I don't think it's necessary on this one. I moved it 1. So I'm going to move it 1 right here. And then you take it straight up. Just like this. Make sure you get that taken care of right away. All right, now we're going to divide. So basically I've got 24 now that I am dividing into 68.4. Well, 24 doesn't go into 6. Nothing. As far as 24 going into 68, I know that it goes in 2 times. So that goes above the 8. 2 times 24 is 48. And when I subtract, I'm left with 20. I bring that 4 straight down, and now I've got 204. I've got to estimate, so 24 basically going into 204. I'm going to think, I don't know, what should we try? Tora? Try 8. So I'm going to try 8. So 8 times 4 is 32. And 8 times 2, 16 plus 3, 19. So that was a good try. So when I subtract, then I'm left with, there's 2 and 1. So you still can't stop. You really shouldn't stop these until they stop on their own, terminate, or repeat the same digits. Unless, of course, you're told to round to a particular place, then that you can stop at that point. So now 24 into 120, and I'm thinking this is going to work out really well. 5 times. Let's try that. So 5 times 4 is 20. And 5 times 2 is 10 plus 2, 120. Thank goodness it stopped. So the answer would be 2.85. Yes? I would go, if there's no directions, I would round to the nearest tenth. On this one, since it stopped, I'm going to write 2.85 because I have no directions that tells me otherwise. If it would never stop, I would go back and check my division just to be sure, and then kind of the best rule of thumb would be round to the nearest tenth unless the directions tell you otherwise. Something like that, yeah. Yeah, yes. Oh, round to the nearest hundredth in your directions? Okay, so that means that you will go 3 places and then round to that hundredth place. So that makes it easy in case it would be something that wouldn't end. All right, any other questions on division? All right, let's see what else we've got down here. I'm guessing fractions. Multiplying and dividing fractions, sure enough. Fractions. For multiplication, make them all fractions, no mixed numbers. Cancel common factors from top to bottom, and then multiply straight across. So I think we lucked out on this first problem. They already are both fractions. 3/8 times negative 2/3. Keep in mind, might as well get the signs out of the way. It's a positive times a negative, so the signs are different. I would go ahead and make it negative. So you look from top to bottom to look for common factors. We have a couple of them here. First of all, the 3's are in common, so you can cancel out the 2 3's, and they would both become 1's. The 2 and 8, well, they're both even, so we can cancel out a 2. The 2 becomes a 1, and the 8 becomes a 4. Now, everything pretty much is canceled out except that 4, so I think we're ready to multiply straight across. The top, 1 times 1, and the denominator, 4 times 1, so negative 1/4. Questions about that? All right, this time they both aren't fractions. We've got 1/4 and 3 5/6. So 1/4 remains 1/4. But the 3 5/6, you have to do 6 times 3, which is 18, plus 5, which is 23. So 23 over 6. So kind of check your signs. It's a positive times a positive, so you know it's going to have a positive answer. Nothing cancels from top to bottom, so simply multiply straight across. 1 times 23 and 4 times 6. 23/24. Questions on that? Yes?
If it's an improper fraction, do we leave it like that?
If it's an improper fraction, you can leave it. Just make sure you reduce it if it has any common factors. Okay, finally, last but not least, division. Division, you change to multiplication and you flip the second fraction. You change it to its reciprocal. Yes? Hey, I'm going to go ahead and do them. So 3/10 divided by 2/9. We're going to make it 3/10 times 9/2. And the bad thing about that is it went from what looked like I could reduce or cancel out to something that now I can't cancel out. There's no common factors from top to bottom, and you don't cancel side to side. So this one, I'm going to multiply 3 times 9 is 27, and 10 times 2 is 20. You can really just leave that 27/20ths if you would like. If for some reason you did need a mixed number, then 20 goes into 27 one time with 7 left over. This was a positive divided by a positive, so it stays positive 1 and 7/20ths. Okay, 7/8 divided by 2 1/3. First of all, you really do need to make them both fractions. So 7/8 remains, divided by 3 times 2 plus 1 would be 7/3. Notice I left the division symbol. But now I'm ready to change it to multiplication. So 7/8 times, and then flip that second fraction, 3/7. We do have something that cancels. The 7s both become 1s. And we can multiply straight across now and get 3/8. Okay, I want to ask you about one more question before I turn this off. What would you do with this? Let's say we had 3/4 times 6/7. Does anything cancel out there before we multiply, Ben?
The 6 and the 4 cancel out.
Okay, the 6 and the 4 cancel out. What are you taking out of there?
You divide them by 2.
Divide them both by 2. So that would become a 3. A 4 would become a 2. Now multiply straight across, 9/14. So I just wanted to make sure you realize that it doesn't have to be one factor of the other before you can cancel. Okay, that would be the end of that then.